with small amount of work around cash for work really. But around the 2004-2005 period when the tsunami hit the Asian continent, that time we started working much more on cash, and we did a lot of work, and that led to something, led to the creation of something called as the Cash Learning Partnership, which is an interagency initiative of Oxfam, Save the Children, British Red Cross, Norwegian Refugee Council, and Action Against Hunger. The Secretariat of Cash Learning Partnership sits within Oxfam, and we are the lead agency in that. And we did a cash review in 2008, and since 2010 onwards, cash transfer programming has really been increasing. And as you can see, in 2011, 2012, it really increased, and this is about 12% of our overall humanitarian spend in 2012, sorry. But it's not just Oxfam where cash transfer programming has actually been increasing. Among donors also, it's actually been increasing very, very sharply. And I just have figures here from ECHO, which is the European Commission Humanitarian Organization. And the red bar, as you see in the chart here, is of ECHO. And the donors have also been embracing cash transfer programming. So moving on, does anybody remember what happened in January 2010? Go back in your memories. Let me give you a clue. Something like this. Well, what does this look like? Earthquake, yeah. But where did it happen? Haiti, yes. So this is a picture from Haiti, which led to the death of approximately 230,000 people, and many more were affected. So in such a situation like this, one would imagine that everything would come to a collapse. Nothing would work. But even in such situations, sometimes markets work. And I remember the example that, the question that came out from there about markets. In Haiti, we did a market assessment as well. So our assessments soon after the crisis told us that markets were working. But because of the extent of devastation, people had lost their homes, people had also lost their businesses, and people were moving into camps. So we chose a couple of program interventions, as we call them, activities, together. So they were, and most of them were around cash because the markets were functioning in these areas. So we gave out cash grants to meet basic needs in the beginning. We provided some grants for recovery of livelihoods. And there was a lot of work for clearing the rubble and clearing the houses, rebuilding lives. We did a lot of work, cash for work. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is something which is called support to canteens. We supported something like 195 women, and one of them is Marie. Marie is from Haiti, and during the earthquake, she lost her house and also the canteen that she used to work in. She was a businesswoman before the earthquake struck, and she used to run a canteen, feeding people and making money out of that, and supporting her household with the money. But after the earthquake, she lost her house, she lost her business as well. So as a part of her assessment, we realized that people were moving into camps, they needed food. And then at the same time, there were people like Marie who needed work to get back on their feet. So we provided grants to 175 women like Marie to set up their canteens, cook food, and provide to the camps to those people who needed food. And this support was provided for 2 months, after which the business, as we saw in the case of the coastal traders, the business started working on its own. So that's the case from Haiti. But 6 months later, something else happened in the world. Exactly, the floods in Pakistan. And this is one of the pictures from Pakistan. And the floods were massive. They affected the entire country, right from the north to the south. And approximately 20 million people were affected by the floods in Pakistan. So what did we do? Again, the assumption is that the markets will not be working because everything is flooded. But markets tend to be very resilient, very often. And very often we found that markets have tended to work, and they may be affected for a short while, soon after the crisis, but traders are very resilient at times, and trade continues in whatever form. There might be prices increase, etc., but markets continue. And if we make the right intervention, it can have a very big effect, positive effect. So in Pakistan, we again used a combination of different activities. Cash grants were given to people to survive in the first few weeks. We did a lot of cash flow work because there were lots of irrigation channels, etc. Pakistan is an agriculture-dominated economy. Lots of irrigation channels were badly affected and were destroyed. So a lot of work had to be carried out, and people needed money and income to buy food. So we provided work in exchange for cash. In some areas, we also, because the cash income wouldn't work, we provided vouchers, which could be exchanged in exchange for food with the traders. We also provided livelihood grants. But in Pakistan, when we were providing cash for work, we also realized that everybody does not have equal opportunity to work, particularly in certain parts of Pakistan. And in the north, where women have a lot of restrictions in terms of movement, they're not allowed to work outside the house for money. We provided them work in their house, and this is the picture of one of the beneficiaries, and her name is Mailara Gujar. Now, it's not just about providing work to people. What we did in this case was, this floods happened in July, and the winter season starts setting sometime around October. And this gave very little time for people, and because the flood started from the north, from Swat, people had lost quite a bit of their household belongings, which also meant beddings and quilts, etc. So we provided work to women like Mailara in their house to make quilts, which could be then supplied to Swat, to those people who would need these blankets and quilts during the winter season. So we were not just supporting these beneficiaries, these individual women in different villages. We were also trying to support people who were not our direct beneficiaries through these cash programs. So 1 year later, something else happened in July 2011. And this is fairly recent. This is East Africa, and I chose this picture because it says a lot. This woman is holding a piece of animal skin and some wild berries, which people were forced to eat to survive. In July 2011, by that time, though this was not a sudden crisis like Haiti and like Pakistan, this grew slowly and gradually. But by July, the acute malnutrition rates had risen much below what we call as emergency situation. They were above 30%, and mortality rates increased above 2 deaths per 1,000 people per day in Somalia. And as a result of this data, parts of Somalia were declared as famine. Famine is something which is very rarely declared, and it shouldn't ever happen. But that's the situation in Somalia in July 2011. Other parts of Horn of Africa were also affected, and emergency situation was declared in Ethiopia, Kenya, and other parts of Somalia. So, I will not go into the whole discussion on what we did. I'll go straight to Ethiopia, where we supported women's groups to buy food from the local market, from the wholesalers, and provide food at affordable rates in the villages. And this is the picture of Fatima, who's the secretary of one of our women's groups in Daman. And this is an area which is very close to the Somalia border in Ethiopia. And so these women's groups were provided with support. They were a bit confident of using cash initially. So the support that Oxfam gave was to go along with them, introduce them to the local wholesalers of food, bring the food into the village, and at the same time we were providing cash for work activity to the other people in the villages, so that people had enough cash to buy the food that these women were going to sell. And that's the kind of support we provided. One-off a cash grant, but then the women's group were expected to generate enough income to sustain themselves. So that's the example from Ethiopia. Then early 2012, something else happened, and this time it was in West Africa. Can anybody tell me what's happening in this picture? Digging for gold. Well, for those people who are digging this, it's actually gold that they're digging for. This is a picture from Chad, and these women are actually digging ant hills, to find grain that the ants would have taken and stored inside. So they're trying to dig for food, and for them that is gold. So that's what happened in Mali, a food crisis in West Africa. We're working in 3 countries here. We're working in Niger, Mali, and in Chad. And again, there's a range of activities that we're doing around cash transfers. We're providing cash grants, and this is a picture of one of our cash for work activities where we try and rehabilitate rangeland so that there is enough water which is collected when there's a rain, and that leads to moisture conservation in the soil, which will probably lead to some kind of vegetation on the land, which can then help the pastoral communities in sustaining their livelihoods. So that's what we're doing in Mali. But as Camilla mentioned earlier, we just don't talk about cash transfers in emergencies. We also look at linking up cash transfer programming with longer-term benefit systems in the countries. And this is the picture of Nupur Kukrety, who is one of the beneficiaries of our safety net program. This is a long-term program in Mali, where people are provided according to the seasonal calendar. Now, like in our lives, we see different seasons in a year. There's summers, there's winters. For many people in Mali, there's certain periods in a year when they face hunger. And it's very difficult to get work, it's very difficult to get food around that time. So the program here was designed in a way that helped people to buy enough food during the hunger season, but at the same time to stop them or prevent them from selling off their assets, which would help them in the longer run. Because that is what people do, they sell off their animals or their gold or their houses to buy food during the hunger season. So this safety net program was designed in a way that people were provided cash to buy food when they needed it, to prevent them from selling off their assets because they were going hungry. And the third grant was given around the time when there was planting that had to be done. So for production or promotion of livelihoods. So this was a long-term 1.5-year program which was provided to the very poorest in the village, something like the bottom 10% of the households. And this was just one part of the work. The other part of the work was advocacy with the government in Mali to ensure that nobody in the country has to go hungry, ever. So the work, the cash transfer work has ended, but the advocacy with the government is still going very strong. And there is a lot of momentum in the country to set up a social protection, as we call it in our development language, social protection policy in the country. And there are lots of other development actors and donors who are very interested in Mali setting up a social protection program. So, so that's all about the programs that we've recently done. These are obviously not, it's not obviously the entire portfolio of our team, but some small snapshots of what we've been doing and different kinds of work that we've been doing. So questions, if you have any questions, ask the others, not me.